This is Life Strategies with Monique.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Life Strategies with Monique. I have with me a very special guest today by the name of LaChelle Barnett. LaChelle Barnett is the CEO and strategy consultant of The Reset Room. And The Reset Room is a consulting firm that specializes in working with coaches, consultants, and service-based entrepreneurs, showing them how to launch their products and services in a way that is profitable. Hello, LaChelle, and welcome to the show today.
Hello. Thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me on the chat today.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear your story and how you got started into the industry of being a business coach. So let's just start from the beginning, and you tell us your background and how you got started so my listeners can know a little bit more about you.
Okay, so you know what? I really had no plans of being an entrepreneur. That's where we start. I actually was. My background has been in therapy, so I'm a licensed clinical therapist, and I've spent most of my professional career, well, not most, all of my professional career, in the helping profession in social work. And part of that, I was running a nonprofit for about maybe 4 years or so. And towards the end, we started to experience some challenges where just different things that were happening in the business that were kind of like, okay, I need to figure out, how to make some adjustments, right? We're starting to have problem after problem, bump after bump. And for me, that's always a sign, all right, you need to slow down, get off the road. Go talk to God, figure out what your marching orders are. So that's what I did. I have a spot that's about 45 minutes from me, and it's kind of my place to talk and talk to God. And so, I'm kind of doing my thing where I'm sharing, hey, God, this is going on. This is happening. What do you want me to do about this, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a moment that changed my whole life because his response was something that was so unexpected. So here I am coming looking for solutions. And what he told me was that season is over. And I'm like, I don't know if you heard my question, but yeah, I said, show me how to fix it. I didn't say, because you got to think about, here's a nonprofit that I built from the ground up for the last 4 years. I poured my heart, my soul, my money, my time, my energy, all kinds of stuff. And so you telling me it's done? I don't know if I feel like, no, I don't feel like I agree, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in this process of him just kind of talking to me about it's over, like that season is done. If I let you keep this nonprofit, you won't be who I called you to be. So I went through a bunch of emotions. I'm crying. Luckily, I'm in the middle of nowhere, so can't nobody see me screaming and whatnot. But by the end of it, I had to make a decision. Either you're going to be obedient or you ain't, right? Mm-hmm. And so I made the choice, all right, I'm gonna let go, right? So we went through that process, which was painful, of letting go of the nonprofit, shutting things down, doing what needed to be done. And as all of that came to a close, now I'm in search of what's next, because for me, there wasn't a next. This was it. Like the nonprofit was it. So what I decided was, all right, so if I'm gonna start something different, number one, I don't know what that'll be. But the one thing that I am sure of is that this next venture needs to be profitable, right? So in our nonprofit, we were not profitable, right? We were impactful, right? So we touched a lot of people's lives. We had some great testimonials, et cetera, but we wasn't making a bunch of money. And so I said, all right, this time around, I'm gonna figure out how to, build a profitable business and not just an impactful business. So I set out on this journey to learn, right? So I went to conferences, I hired coaches, I read books, I bought programs, I did all kinds of stuff. And at the end of about 6 months, I look up and I had spent nearly $50,000 on learning. And I'm like, what in the entire world just happened? Because number one, I'm broker than I've ever been, because I didn't have $50,000 just sitting around, just pulling money. I don't even know where that money came from, because I legit did not have it. In addition to that, not only am I broker than I've ever been, but I'm no further along, right? Like, I've just spent 6 months learning. I haven't actually started the business. I haven't actually, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it was a rough period, because now I'm getting my lights cut off, like things that I had never experienced in my life, right? Like, my hustle hand has always been pretty strong. So if it gets tight, we get another job, right? Like, we figure out how to bring money in so we don't struggle like that.
Right.
This was my first time experiencing, this degree of money problems. And so I went through my period of maybe a month or two of sadness and anger and all these different emotions that you go through, doubt, until eventually I was like, okay, get yourself up, figure out first of all, you didn't spend too much money to give up. You don't even got no choice. Like, that's not even an option, right? And so the thing that kind of changed the trajectory of my business is, well, a couple things. The biggest thing is me joining a mastermind. So here I am. I'm on the upswing, not from a revenue perspective, but on an upswing from a motivational perspective. I'm no longer depressed. I'm no longer sad. So now I'm feeling ready to go out and tackle this thing all over again. And I'm trying to like, okay, well, let me get clear about what I need. And if I was going to throw any kind of takeaways, nuggets, whatever you want to call it, the first one is you got to get clear about what you need, right? Like, regardless to whether you're running a business, you're trying to improve your marriage, you're trying to lose weight, it don't really matter what it is. Sometimes we don't spend enough time assessing what it is that we need. Because if I had done that in the beginning, I would not have had to invest in all of those things, right? Because some of them I didn't need, some of them I needed, but didn't need right that moment. So I spent a little time getting clear about, all right, what is it that you need now? Because what you don't need is information. You done got information out it's just coming out of every ear. Mm-hmm. What I needed, after I did a little bit of pros and cons and just kind of got clear, what I discovered is what you really need is accountability with a little bit of support, right? Questions come up, you need to be able to problem solve those, but mostly it's just about accountability. So I decided, all right, well, I think mastermind is the best way to go. So for those of you who are entrepreneurs, there's always this question around group coaching versus masterminds versus, there's lots of different ways to learn. And so group coaching is really more about information, like you learning different skills and, things that you need in order to be successful. And mastermind, there's not a lot of teaching that happens, right? In my mastermind, there's virtually no teaching that happens. What there is accountability and support. And so I decide, all right, here's what I'm going to do. So lo and behold, when you get clear about what you need, God presents it. And so maybe a week or two later, a lady that I was following on Facebook, never met her, ain't been following her that long, is talking about a mastermind that she's opening. So I'm like, okay, well, this is this is interesting. So I'm listening to her, whatever. She tells the price, and I'm like, that is not for me. That's not it. That's right, because it's thousands of dollars, right? Like, and I'm coming off of having spent all this money, so I'm like, nah, I'm not going. And then I had to go back and say, well, LaChelle, didn't you say that's what you needed though? Like, I thought you said, okay. So I'm thinking about it. I'm going back and forth. I call a friend who's also a fellow entrepreneur. I would encourage people not to get advice from people who are not fellow entrepreneurs.
Say that doesn't help.
Yeah, the entrepreneur lifestyle is no joke. Few people will understand what you're doing. So you can't talk to anybody. So this was, a friend who was also a fellow entrepreneur, and I'm basically telling her, trying to decide, do it, don't do it. And her whole thing was, no, don't do it. You done spent all your money already. Stick to what you blah, blah, blah. So I get off the phone. I think about it. I'm like, I'm doing it. Right? Like, I know what I need. I'm not, here's the second thing that I would say in terms of tip or takeaway is sometimes we're holding ourselves to our past mistakes when that ain't got nothing to do with who I am today. Mm-hmm. Right? So I can keep being upset and frustrated and mad and whatever you want to call it because I spent all this money. And I can have all this shame and guilt if I want to, or I can remind myself, I'm not making decisions like I was making before. I'm not in the same mental space that I was in before. Like, I'm different, right? So I don't have no reason to be upset or shameful about, me having made some mistakes along the way. So I make the investment. I dropped a couple $1,000 or several $1,000s that it requires to join the mastermind. And when I tell you it was the best decision I've ever made from a business standpoint, it was one of the bigger risks, not so much from a money standpoint, but from a girl, don't make no more mistakes. You didn't made enough mistakes for everybody at this point. But the reason why it was a life-changing might be extra, but it was, right, a life-changing experience is not because of the coach itself, although my coach is phenomenal. But again, there's not a lot of teaching. It's not like there's a bunch of, things that you're learning. It's the increased accountability that happens when you're in a collective group of people who are all striving for the same thing, struggling, wins, all of that. And so as a result of joining the mastermind, it was allowed me to get more focused, laser in on some of the things that I was doing, develop a really clear strategy that I had already been kind of working on. And I was able to 5X my revenue in 90 days. So I got my return on my investment ASAP, right? Yeah. So the other, again, if I was going to throw out a takeaway is it ain't always going to make sense, right? The next step that you should be doing is not, like, in real life, you don't invest another $6,000 in a program when you already, that doesn't make logical sense. But if I had not done that, I would not have 5X my revenue in 90 days. I would not be where I'm at right now in my business if I had not made that choice. Right. So that's kind of the short version / long version of, kind of where I'm at right now and how things have progressed from a business standpoint.
Well, one of the things that you said that spoke the most to me was the first thing you said you had to do was to make a decision, because you had to make a decision to let go. Second thing you said, which really, really speaks to me, is you had to get clear about what you needed before you can move forward, because we keep spinning our wheels over and over again on things that we don't need. And so once you figure out what the unnecessary things are and get to what's necessary, then you really can move forward in your business.
Yeah, so definitely two things that I would say. Number one is that I honestly believe that if I had made the choice to hang on and keep the nonprofit, God would have blessed it. I honestly believe that we would have had a measure of success, right? Now, the problem is I wouldn't have become who he wanted me to become, and I would not have actually be fulfilling purpose the way he's called me to do. But I don't honestly think that he wouldn't have blessed me or favored me within the nonprofit. So the truth is, it is honestly a choice, right? Like, I could have kept in the same vein and been afraid to let go and walk into the unknown, because God gives us that choice, right? We have to learn to make the tough decisions and be obedient. In some ways, it's not that tough because it's just obedience, right? But in other ways, you're letting go of everything you've ever known. So it is. So I would definitely emphasize it really is a choice. Even though God is saying let go, that don't mean I got to. It's been plenty of times where I wasn't obedient, right? The second thing, in terms of just getting really clear about what you need, here's one of the biggest things that I've learned, and one of the things that I share with my clients all the time, is all that money that I spend in my business, they weren't bad investments. I don't have many bad experience with coaches, or I know other people have. But I've spent a ton of money and a ton of time, and I only had one bad experience, maybe two, of all of the things that I've done. And so it wasn't that the investment was bad. It wasn't that it was that I wasn't ready for what I was investing in. And therefore I could not implement the things that they were sharing. The information was valuable. A lot of times
you to say that one more time so they can hear that, because that in itself speaks volumes. I mean, you really need to say that one more time so that they can hear the magnitude of that, because that's powerful.
It's a big deal, because a lot of times people think it's the coach that, the coach wasn't what I needed. No, that sometimes that might be the case, but what I have found more times than not is that I'm investing in, or I was investing in, things that I didn't need at the moment, right? Like, it's not that the information wasn't valuable. Not that the coach wasn't a good coach. It was I couldn't implement the things that they were sharing because I wasn't in a place to be able to do so. Here it is, I'm learning from multi-million-dollar coaches, and I ain't even figured out who I want to serve. right? Anybody in business understands the most important aspect of what you're doing is who you're servicing. Your entire business is built around who you want to serve. So I was out here learning about sales, learning about marketing, learning about branding. I'm learning about all this stuff, but I ain't learned nothing about who I want to serve and how to identify your ideal client and who you target market, none of that. So I'm learning all these things are valuable at some point. And so we have to get in the habit of only investing in, number one, we have to get in the habit of getting clear about what we need before we get to a coach. And we might not know all of what we need, right? Some of that clarity comes as you get the coach. But you got to have an idea. You know what? I'm in the stage of my business where I really need to get clear about marketing, or I really need to figure out, I really don't even know what's wrong. The part that I'm stuck in, like, it doesn't matter whether it's vague or whether it's super specific. The point is, you got a better chance of getting what you need from whatever coach when you already have an idea of what that is. If you have no idea what you need and you're just spending money, well, that's not going to work. You got to have an idea. You know what? I'm trying to go from side hustle to thriving business, and I don't really understand business. Okay. That's you knowing what you need. Even though you don't know all the aspects of business that you now need to learn, the part that you do know is, I really don't know how to build a thriving business. So that means you need to look for a coach who can show you how to build a thriving business, right? And the more you talk to people, the better you understand which coach can show you how to do that. Because again, it's not that the coach is bad, it's that each person has their own expertise and each person has the clients that they work best with. So I definitely could not stress enough that sometimes it's not the investment that's the issue. It's your lack of clarity and investing in the right thing or investing at the right time. And so my policy for my life and my policy for the people who I serve is you don't invest in anything that's not getting ready to yield an ROI in the next 90 days. If you can't implement it now, if you're not going to see a return on your investment in the next 90 days, it's not a right now investment.
Right. Wow. So now that you went through your mastermind, you spent your money, you figured out and got clear on what you needed for your business. And so now you've started the Reset Room. So talk about your business and how you, as a business coach, help your clients.
Okay, so I already had the Reset Room when I joined the mastermind. I had already started the business. I had already served clients, just not in the same magnitude, after I joined the mastermind. And so essentially what we do in the Reset Room is we work with predominantly two groups of entrepreneurs, obviously coaches, consultants, and service-based entrepreneurs, but at particularly two different stages. So the first is we have a line of products and services that are geared towards first-time entrepreneurs, because I find that a lot of people struggle in that first year, the first actually couple years. And in that group of people, we're really showing people, number one, the foundations of business, right? Because a lot of times people come in being an expert, but they come in being an expert at this one thing, right? I'm a relationship coach, or I'm a fitness coach, or I'm a whatever coach. And so they're an expert in their own vein, but they don't necessarily know how to attract or monetize or stand out or et cetera, et cetera. And so we help wrap the business aspect around their already expertise. That's that first group of people. Typically, that's what we're doing. And so sometimes I need to change my pricing structure. I need to establish pricing structure. I need to figure out who my ideal client is. Kind of that's a little bit more basic. And our goal is to show people how to get their next 5 clients. All right. Then the second group that we work with is more serial entrepreneurs, people who have been in business multiple times. Maybe they're jumping into a new type of business, or maybe they're doing something different, but they at least have an understanding of how business works. And so with that group of people, it's usually one of two things. We do a lot of done for you services where we're building out back end kind of stuff. So our focus is, God did not give you this purpose, this passion, this whatever you want to call it, for you to kill yourself trying to get it done. Like that whole hustle mentality, that's not for me. That's not my life. I can't, here's the thing. Like, if we were honest, there's an element of hustle that comes with entrepreneurship, right? But the question becomes, how long? How long you gonna hustle, right? Like, how long before you begin to bring in passive income? How long before you have a system in place that you can just rinse and repeat? So with this second group, with serial entrepreneurs, we're typically focused on systems and strategies and scaling, and less, kind of basic business understanding type stuff. So that's essentially what we do. Again, our goal is always showing people how to 5x their revenue in 90 days. Once you do it yourself, then you have a better understanding of how to help other people do it. And so now that's our focus. Because of my own $50,000, blunder, mistake, whatever you want to call it, I am adamant about, you're going to make this investment, but you're going to get this back, right? Like, number one, we have affordable prices. And number two, I want you to be able to see a return on your investment, because it doesn't take a year. Like, it doesn't take nearly as long as we take.
Wow.
But so that's our focus, is how do you 5x your revenue in 90 days?
Wow, that's awesome. That's very awesome. So what is the greatest piece of advice that you would give someone who's actually really wanting to start out from the very, very beginning? And I know you already talked about the first time for entrepreneur, but what piece of advice would you give them as they're beginning to start out?
Excuse me, there are so many pieces of advice. So I think here are maybe my top two. So my first one is, you have to understand business. You can't just understand your craft, right? Like, a lot of people understand their craft, but they don't understand business. And so you cannot build a thriving business if you're trying to go from side hustle to business, or from nothing to business, or whatever part of the early stages you're in. Business is one of those things, it's complex in that you can't just be good at one thing. You don't necessarily have to master everything, right? Like, I'm not a master of every single aspect of business. My gift is strategy, right? I can show you the how of getting wherever it is that you want to be from a business standpoint. But even though I'm not a master of every single aspect of business, I understand each aspect. I understand how they're intertwined. And so I think the biggest suggestion that I would say is, get a clear understanding of business, because the truth is there's lots of different ways to build a business. You could be all online. You could be all offline. You could, be all membership based. You could be all high ticket. There's so many different ways to build a business that once you understand the foundational pieces, then you have a better idea of how you're going to build your business. Because I see a lot of people that say, well, this person told me to do this, but this person told me to do something different. Well, that's because the strategy is different based on your own specific outcomes. Like, the person who wants to bring in 10K a month versus 100K a month, two different strategies. The person who's a product-based business versus a service-based business, two different strategies. Like, there's so many different nuances. There's not a one-size-fits-all, but the part that is universal is basic business principles. You have to understand marketing. You have to understand sales. You have to understand how to position yourself. Those things are universal, and if you're early, you need to understand them. That's probably the biggest suggestion before you go off and spend thousands of dollars on websites and logos and sales funnels and all these different things. Before you hire a big time coach that's going to charge you 10 to get in the mastermind, let's focus on you hiring a coach that's going to charge you 1,000, right? For you to be able to get your first set of clients, understand the basics. Like, let's make some money. And because I don't think there's anything wrong with coaches charging $10,000, $20,000 if that's what they want to do. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think that you have to know where you're at in your business. Like, if you're new, you're not going to see a return on your investment in 90 days if you invest 10. You're just not. Because there's too much of a learning curve. There are too many things that you have to learn, and there are too many things that are going to be outside of your comfort zone that you're going to have to push through in order to get those results. Because entrepreneurship is not just about the external, right? The external is the business stuff. The internal is your confidence, right? Your consistency. Like, both of those, they go hand in hand. You could know everything on the planet about business, but if the internal is messed up, you're going to struggle to actually implement. So that's the biggest suggestion that I would make is let's start with a coach that's going to teach you the foundational principles that's going to last you a lifetime.
Yeah. I think that's some great advice, because I've seen a lot of people who have their gifting and they may have an idea or a concept and they just want to open a business. It's kind of like that salon idea. I know how to do hair now, so I'm just going to open up a salon and I'm just going to do hair, but I don't understand anything about running a business. I don't know anything about keeping my books or, keeping, hiring, and I don't know anything. So I really think that is a great piece of advice for individuals who are really starting out. Get the basics. because that
Mm-hmm.
can literally keep you from making some unnecessary mistakes
Yeah.
and blunders and spending a lot of unnecessary money.
I feel like, I don't know if y'all heard my story, but I'm just telling you that's not the best way to go. That's all I can
I know, right? Not a good option. So definitely to my listeners out there, I hope you're really paying attention to what LaChelle is saying about being in business for yourself. Make sure that you understand the basics of the business before you even start to spend all that money. So LaChelle, tell my listeners how they can get in touch with you if they wanted to reach out and get more information about the Reset Room, how they can get in touch with you and learn a little bit more about your products and your services.
Okay, so here's the two things, a couple things. So one, you can find the Reset Room on Facebook. I predominantly am on Facebook. We have a spot on Instagram, but we don't do a lot with it. Most of our clients come from Facebook. So there's a business page, of course, you could follow. You could follow me personally, just on my personal page. There would be two things that I would give you for free that I think would be depending on which stage that you're in. So if you're the newer entrepreneur, and you're trying to get clear about, all right, where am I going and what am I doing? We have a spiritual gift assessment that's free that you can take. It takes 5 minutes. You answer a couple questions. And at the end, it will email you what your spiritual gift is. And the reason why that's important from an earlier entrepreneur standpoint is because when you understand your purpose, it becomes easier to stick to the process.
That's
right. And not
Mm-hmm.
be all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so step one of understanding your purpose is understanding your gift, right? So we teach a 4-step process to identifying your purpose. But step one is identifying your gift, and we give you that for free. So I'll tell you how you can get that. The second thing, because it's the same number, we use a text number,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the same number. You just text 2 different keywords depending on where you're at in this entrepreneur journey. So the second thing is a profitable launch guide. So we teach the whole, I don't want to cuss on your podcast.
Uh-oh.
I tend to be a cusser. But the second one is for people who are a little further along, and it's called our profitable launch guide, where it basically shows you, here's your framework for launching in a way that's profitable, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
next launch of your product, your service, whatever it is, here are the things that are going to be absolutely essential. And it's about how do I get to a place where I'm yielding 5 and 6 figures from my launch? Not the couple $100, not the couple $1,000 even, but how do I have one major launch over each quarter, and each one of them is bringing me a 5-figure launch? Again, let's get out of this hustle mode and get into systems. And so that's what that profitable guide is for. So the way that you would get either one of those, the number that you would text is 574-330-0405. So again, the number is 574-330-0405. And if you want the gift assessment, then you would just text the word gift. All right. If you want the profitable launch guide, then you're just going to text launch. And you can text both if you want, but just, depending on where you're at in your journey, those are kind of the best ways to stay on our radar and, keep in contact.
Awesome. Thank you so much, LaChelle, for sharing with us your journey and how you got started in business as an entrepreneur and telling us all about the Reset Room. To all my listeners out there, please make sure that you tune in to LaChelle and all of the great things that she's doing in business. If you want those free products, make sure that you text that number and text the word gift and then text the word launch so that you can receive the free gifts that she's giving you today. Again, LaChelle, thank you so much for being on the show today. And to my listeners out there, thanks for tuning in to Life Strategies with Monique. And until next time, stay educated and empowered.
You've been listening to Life Strategies with Monique. Contact Monique Pettaway at www.moniquepettaway.com or info@moniquepettaway.com.